Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 75, The Way to Eden.
Welcome to another episode of the grooviest far-out Star Trek podcast. It's Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion, and we reach, brother. Each week, we talk about Star Trek, and we really investigate the morals, the meanings, and messages of every episode. And let me tell you, it sounds.
Oh, it really sounds. And you can sound with us, brother. Or sister, as the case may be. On Facebook, Skype, and Twitter, the handle is Mission Log Pod. You can call us, 323-522-5641. You can email us at missionlog@roddenberry.com. Remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log, but hey, don't be a Herbert about it if we don't, okay?
This episode will be full of groovy talk, and I'll be shocked if we make it through it without you singing at least once.
I don't know all the words yet, but we should tell people what the episode actually is.
Yeah, the episode is The Way to Eden, and derisively known as the Space Hippies episode.
Yeah.
And it is. It is the Space Hippies episode.
It is very much a Space Hippie episode. But
you know what? But the trick here, the trick on Mission Log is to dig deeper. To see if there's more than just the Space Hippie episode.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yes. Not unlike Spock's brain. Everybody says, oh, yeah, that's that one. But then, you just chip away a little bit at the surface and maybe you find a whole lot. Maybe it really does sound. We'll find out. What we need to find out before that, though, because I know in an episode like this, I mean, this is one of those episodes where there has to be a lot of, trivia kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and lay that out for me, brother?
All right. Well, let's see here if we can chime with the trivia. First of all, I got a couple of discovered documents that I need to bring to everybody's attention. We have the music agreements with both Craig Robertson, he was the composer, and Arthur Heineman, the writer for the lyrics to the music used in this episode. And actor Charles Napier was also given a credit. So he did contribute to the music and the lyrics that are used in The Way to Eden. So you will find those on the website, missionlogpodcast.com. Now, we also have a photo. Now, this was submitted by a listener, so thank you very much. And it shows a Tholian vessel alongside the modification done for the Aurora, the little stolen ship used in The Way to Eden. That ship is a Tholian ship, but with a couple of nacelles attached. And our listener snapped this picture at the Smithsonian exhibit from the early 90s. Now, I don't know about you, Ken, but I watch both the remastered and the original versions. I try to do that every week, but I know that I wanted to on this one in particular. There's something to be said for both. It's kind of cool to just see the recycled Tholian ship. And the new one that they created is kind of whimsical. It kind of has this 50s sci-fi look to it, like a little... almost like a VW bus with some nacelles on it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Very in keeping with the hippie nature of the Seekers of Eden.
Right. Now, we have a lot of guest stars, so I'm just going to give you a quick look at a handful of them, not all of them. But I did mention earlier Charles Napier, who I really love.
Let me stop you right there. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, right.
When I'm watching this, I'm like, there's something familiar about that guy, but I can't figure out what it is. And then once I realized who it was, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't stop thinking that that's Charles Napier now when you rewatch it. It's kind of tough.
Yeah.
He is best known for playing a tough guy, usually a military guy. I loved him in Austin Powers. And, of course, he has a tiny, tiny role, but so memorable in The Blues Brothers. So that's one that really stands out to me. It really reaches me, man. Also, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Silence of the Lambs, a bunch of episodes of the A-Team. I mean, the guy's resume just goes on and on and on.
See, this is one of those things where, not unlike, maybe a Darren McGavin movie or something like that, you're going to miss somebody's favorite.
Yeah,
like
totally.
you missed mine.
Oh, no. Which one is yours?
Well, I think he really sounded in the karaoke party in The Cable Guy.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
and I don't remember if he actually sang there or not, but yes. Yeah. Once I saw him, I was just like, wow, everything. He's like that guy from Tomorrow Is Yesterday, whose name I can't remember now, but he's like that guy that like once you recognize him, you're like, oh man, he has been in everything.
Just everything.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that as we record this, he passed away just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because I would love to have reached out to him and
well,
see if we could reach.
Yeah. We also have Skip Homeyer, who we have already seen in Patterns of Force. He was Melicon in that, and you recognize him because of his incredible voice. And he started in radio, did a bunch of TV, but it's kind of cool to see him back in a very different guise in this. Victor Brand, who played Rad, which is a cool name for a character, Rad. He also had still has a fantastic career as a voice actor, everything from video games and cartoons to features. Very, very cool. Now, Deborah Downey, she doesn't get a name in this episode. She is the blonde hippie who stands out for having the singing moment with both Charles Napier and then the jam session with Spock. She actually had a great career as a singer from a very young age. She toured with the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars, which had her working with some huge acts of the early and mid-'60s. She only has a handful of credits as an actor, though, and I'd say about half of those are exploitation films. So not a big career as an actor, but she certainly stood out in this one. She's very memorable.
That's really kind of too bad, too. I will say she is great on the bicycle wheel.
she can really jam on the bicycle
She can
wheel.
indeed.
Yeah, I think she had that on her resume. That's probably why she got the job.
May well be.
Yeah.
Because they were just going to dub that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can really tell the difference when she's... Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right. David Alexander, the director, his only other directing credit for Star Trek is Plato's Stepchildren, which we talked about a few episodes back. We mentioned Herbert. You don't want to be a Herbert. That may well have been a little swipe at Herb Solo. Not that people disliked Herb, but that was a little in-joke for the show. And by the way, you may have noticed, again, a writing credit on this one for Michael Richards. Again, still not the guy from Seinfeld. That is a pen name for DC Fontana when she maybe wanted to distance herself from a story. But yeah, DC is indeed one of the writers on this show, as was Arthur Heineman.
Before we get to today's recap, we have a thing about which to tell you that we think you'll like. You'll certainly like the name. It's called Transporter. Transporter is a storage device that lets you create your own private cloud for syncing, accessing, protecting, and sharing your data. Now, you can do that with something like Dropbox, but if you have anything like a serious amount of data that you want to store or share, you can't do it as safely, nor as economically. With Transporter, you don't have to worry about who has access to your digital life because you make that decision. Your stuff's not stored in an unseen server farm who knows where. It's stored on a physical device that you control. You share with whom you want to share, whether they have a transporter or not. As for cost, 100 gigabytes of storage on Dropbox will run you $99 a year. If you already have a drive that you want to use, you can pay $99 one time for the Transporter sync and get the same functionality without the recurring costs or security concerns. 500 gigabytes of storage on Dropbox will cost you close to $500 a year. You can do that, or you can spend $249 one time for a 1 terabyte transporter. That's more storage, more security, and a one-time cost that's less than half what you'd pay on Dropbox for less. The benefits of a transporter are big. Learn more about them yourself at filetransporterstore.com. Check out the models and offers they have available. Then, when you decide to buy at a discount. Because you're listening to Mission Log, you can use the offer code MLOG. That'll get you 10% off on your order. All caps, no spaces, MLOG. MLOG will get you 10% off when you buy your transporter at filetransporterstore.com. They come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've really got nothing to lose. Beam yourself over to filetransporterstore.com to find out more. Transporter. Storage and sharing made simple and secure. Brought to you by Connected Data. And we do thank them for sponsoring this week's Mission Log.
You know the episode with the gangsters, you know the episode with the Nazis, but none of those chime like the episode with the hippies, brother. Also, sister.
Prologue. The Enterprise is chasing the Aurora, a stolen Federation ship with 6 aboard. Refusing to stand down, the Enterprise locks the Aurora in a tractor beam. Their struggle to get away destroys the Aurora, though Scotty's able to beam the ship's inhabitants out just in time. And a nice lot, too. Act 1. The son of the Catalan ambassador is one of the 6 who'd been aboard the Aurora. It is because of that the 6 are not thrown in the brig. Kirk orders Scotty to take them all to the briefing room, though over the intercom, the bridge hears one woman say they're not in the mood. Chekhov thinks he recognizes that voice. In the transporter room, the 6 are starting an impromptu sit-in. No go, no go, no go. Kirk and Spock head down to investigate. In the transporter room, the 2 officers meet Tongo Rad, son of the Catalan ambassador. He gives the boy a good talking to about how he has his father to thank for keeping him out of the pokey. Tongo Rad is unimpressed with Kirk and declines to comment on why he did what he did. He also declines to call Kirk Kirk or Captain or any combination of the two. Instead, he calls him Herbert, a pejorative term for someone who's overly officious, too concerned with the rules. A mid-level manager noted for his rigid and limited patterns of thought. A square, Daddy-O. And apologies to anyone listening whose name is actually Herbert. I'm sure we reach. Kirk tells Spock to take the Aurora 6 to sickbay for a checkup, though Spock would like to talk to them first. Turns out he totally groks their fullness. They are one. He is one. He is not Herbert. While he knows what they're after, Spock says he'd like to hear them say it outright. Fine. They've turned their back on confusion. They seek a simple life, and they'll start on the planet Eden. Kirk says that planet is a myth, though the leader of the group says they recognize no hostilities and no authority but that which is in themselves. Check the braids, dude. I'm the authority on this ship, whether you recognize me or not, says Kirk. I'm taking all you guys back to your respective homes. The leader asks to be taken to Eden, but Kirk says he has orders to the contrary. He reiterates his sickbay orders to Spock and leaves the transporter room, chants of Herbert, 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 trailing off behind him. Back on the bridge, Chekhov tells Kirk that he thinks he knows one of the runaways. She is Irina Geliulin. They were in Starfleet Academy together, though she dropped out. Kirk is incredulous. One of those was in the Academy? He gives Chekhov permission to go see her. Spock's back. He tells Kirk that Kirk could be wrong about Eden being a myth. Also, these weirdos aren't just weirdos. They're actually smart people who've chosen a different path. Take their leader, Dr. Severin. Wicked smart expert in acoustics, communications, and electronics, though he was relieved of all those duties when he started this movement. Kirk's heard of him. Kinda stunned that that's who that is. Tongo Rad is about as smart as his father is when it comes to space studies. Kirk's having a hard time wrapping his head around it. These are smart people who have rejected the modern. Spock explains, there are some who are not into the planned perfection, the constant balance that has been created in society. They search for an Eden, where spring comes. Kirk says, fine, but they don't have to steal ships and be babies about it. By the way, Spock, what makes you so sympathetic to them? Spock says it's not sympathy, but curiosity. They see themselves as aliens, even on their home worlds. He knows how that feels. Down in sickbay, the one they call Adam is playing a song about how cool things will eventually be. Chekhov comes in to see Irina. Away from the others, he berates her. You were a scientist. What the heck? Irina says she's glad to see him and happy with the choices that she has made. Chekhov says he's happy with the choices that he's made, too, though they obviously still have feelings for each other. She tries to sway him to her apparently freewheeling ways, though he rebuffs her. Suddenly, a tussle. The group is fighting with some red shirts, demanding to see their leader as we head to commercial. Act 2. As his people protest outside, we find out why Severin did not want a physical. He's a carrier for Synthococcus novae, a sort of superbug that sprung up as a result of the sterilized society in which everyone lives in the 23rd century. Everyone except the primitives among whom Severin and his people were trying to live. Had he gotten to them, they'd have all died. While he suffers no ill effects, he's sort of a typhoid Mary. In fact, he may have infected members of the Enterprise crew. It'll take about a day for McCoy to find out. In the meantime, Severin should be quarantined. Kirk tells his followers, and they start with the Herbert chants again, and a short song from Adam, and a pretty hard recruitment push among the Enterprise crew. Kirk asks Spock to try to communicate with them and keep them in line. Spock makes a deal with Severin. He'll use the Enterprise to find Eden. He'll also ask the Federation to let them settle Eden, but if they keep trying to get the members of the Enterprise crew to quit and join them, none of that's going to happen. In their talk, Severin admits that he knew he was a carrier. He knew he was restricted to traveling in areas with advanced technology, and that seems to have made him want to throw such areas off. The layers of artificial atmosphere, the programs in those computers that run your ship and your lives for you, they bred what my body carries. He says they've infected him, and only the primitives can cleanse him. Spock points out that Severin just meeting the primitives would kill them. Severin seems to relent. He'll talk to his people about being cool. On the bridge, Spock tells Kirk that Severin is insane. He hasn't checked with McCoy about that, but he is certain. Kirk says he's sorry that Severin turned out to be insane, but Spock says that doesn't diminish his interest in their movement. That's not insane, even if Severin is. He'd like permission, by the way, to locate Eden, and if he could have Chekhov's help in auxiliary control, that'd be super. Adam comes to Spock's quarters to talk, though he's distracted by Spock's Vulcan harp. They agree to play together at some point. Down in auxiliary control, Irina comes to see Chekhov. Distracted by who she is and what they were, Chekhov spills the fact that people could control the whole ship from this room. So way to go, Chekhov. Also, he and Spock are looking for Eden. Back together, the Seekers of Eden think that they are swaying various crew members to their cause. Also, Irina says they could run the whole ship from auxiliary control. So again, way to go, Chekhov. Now let's go out and swing as many as we can. It so starts to chime. Act 3. Adam and one of the Eden Seekers knock out a song that, call me a hippie if you want to, totally makes sense. Maybe if we stopped pushing each other and instead started calling each other friend or brother, life would be better. Weak last line, but the rest of the song is not terrible. Call me a hippie if you want to. Then Spock sits in on an instrumental number. The Enterprise has really gotten into the music. Perhaps this has to do with Severin's expertise in acoustics and communication. For some reason, the music is being broadcast all over the Enterprise. That's enough to distract the guard watching Severin. Tongo Rad delivers a sort of nerve pinch, disables the guard, and frees Severin. They then take over auxiliary control. In no time, they've taken over the ship. Destination, Eden, which will take the Enterprise through Romulan space. Also, try anything and I'll destroy the Enterprise. Peace and love, Severin out. Kirk tells the Eden Seekers that Severin is insane. Then he has Spock tell them. The group does, of course, not believe either of them. Adam plays another song as Severin reworks some of the ship's circuits. He's constructed an auditory weapon that he says will stun the crew, though, if left unchecked, it will in fact kill them. Knowing that Severin and crew will try something soon, Scotty, Kirk, and Spock try to break into auxiliary control. Severin activates the sonic what's-it, and everyone on the Enterprise goes down. Act 4. Spock, Kirk, and Scotty come to, though the ultrasonic assault continues. Kirk is able to disable the weapon. As people wake up, they find that they still have no control of the ship, and the shuttlecraft has been stolen. It's on Eden. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Chekhov beam down to Eden, which it turns out is no paradise. All of the plants are violently acidic. Chekhov touches a flower and is burned. Adam has eaten the fruit of a tree and lies dead. In the shuttlecraft, the remaining Seekers nurse feet burned by contact with the planet's surface. Kirk and crew prepare to beam everyone up for treatment, though Severin argues that no one is leaving. Despite all he's seen, a mad Severin climbs a tree, eats of its fruit, and dies almost immediately. Later, back in orbit around Starbase, Kirk is preparing to send the 4 survivors down. Spock and Chekhov say goodbye to Irina, with Spock encouraging her to continue her search for Eden. He has no doubt that they will find it, or make it themselves. The end.
Ken, if I learned anything I learned to never trust a man with egg on his shirt.
Egg or an egg? Because there was like there were a couple of pendants that looked like maybe a cross section of a hard boiled egg. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's the hard boiled egg with the little infinity symbol.
Well, like a rune. Yeah. Was it the infinity symbol? Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So then, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Doesn't matter because it's all one, dude.
Yeah, all one.
Yeah, and then you hold up your hand, kind of like that, like I'm doing right now. I'm sorry, let me put that closer to the microphone so people can see it.
Oh, now I can see it.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, brother. It really fantastic, by the way, that egalitarianism, totally a thing, right? So among the criminals is an ambassador's son, and because of that, nobody is going to be jailed. Now, he is the son of an ambassador who is negotiating right now to get into the Federation, right?
Right.
So basically somebody up the chain in the Federation said, we really want to impress these people with how upright and good we are, so let's let this one kid get away with Grand Theft Spaceship.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, would be a totally awesome game.
Right.
You're like knocking over green ladies and, beating up tribble traders, just beating up tribble traders and taking all of their latinum or whatever passes for money in the 23rd but not 24th century.
Right.
Yeah. Grand Theft Spaceship. Look for it. Coming soon to an app store near you.
The whole thing really kind of surprised me. That's the reason he gets away with it. He's a diplomat's son. Because otherwise, I would have hoped that Kirk just swung around, throw him in the brig, take the ship. Well, there is no more ship, but take him back to where they stole the ship. Done. We are done with you. You
would actually hope that Kirk would do that anyway. I mean, you would hope that Kirk would say, okay, look, I was told not to put you in the brig, but you obviously can't be trusted, so I'm going to put you in the brig. And guess what? Tell your dad, see if I care.
Yeah. And by the way, let me go down the list of every time that I tried to listen to what a diplomat had to say, because it didn't go well.
Right. Right. Exactly. That was the other thing I was thinking about too, although it was a diplomat from someplace else. But yeah, it was sort of, I was really sort of shocked by that. I also don't really understand. So this one is a diplomat's son. Mm-hmm. So we're going to let all 6 of them, who have already stolen a spaceship, just run around and do whatever.
Well, that's the thing with the Enterprise is once you get beamed on board, you pretty much have just free run of the ship.
Run of the place. That's right.
Go
although
anywhere.
Scotty is fine kicking one of those barefoot whatsits out of engineering when it comes to it.
Right. One thing from a production point of view, I don't know if it bothered you as much as it bothered me, but there are a lot of post-production camera tricks in here, like doing an optical zoom where, clearly it was a wide shot, but then just in order to create a more dramatic moment or reaction in post, they kind of push in.
Nope.
And then it makes everything look horribly grainy. And there were several of those in there that even with the HD restoration really stood out to me this time around. I've noticed it before, but in this one, it just seems like a lot of the edits and camera tricks were not that good.
That's weird because I have noticed it before and it's bothered me. I didn't even notice it this time.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Maybe I was just too dazzled by Charles Napier's smile. No, Severin's ears. Although first time I saw Severin's ears come on, and this doesn't count as singing, by the way. The first time I saw Severin on screen, I immediately thought, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, because that really seemed exactly like it. Although now I'm thinking, I shave my head. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking next convention that you and I are at.
Oh,
somebody's got to paint that on me. I don't even. No, just the flower painted on top of my head.
Okay, good.
I think that might count as a costume too. Hey. Correct me if I'm wrong. We often, say, you especially will say, well, they explain that it's science.
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, they explain that it was science, but it's not really science. They just sort of say it's science, and you're okay with that. Chekhov actually explained how we find planets, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, actually explained how we actually find planets.
Right.
I was so impressed with that. Because if you didn't watch it or if you don't remember, he's basically like, so we know where some planets are, but then we also know that there are other planets out there. So what we do is we compare where we think these planets should go with where they're actually going. And if there's any variation, we assume that that's like another planetary body sort of affecting, the way we thought it was going to go.
Yeah. They're looking for the gravitational effects on unknown celestial bodies. It's really, really cool. We actually had a listener, Alice, point that out in an email before the recording of the show, and I thought that was completely awesome. Yeah,
it's totally awesome. This is one of those things, because I'll hear people occasionally. I mean, those are one of those things you always hear about Star Trek. It's like, oh yeah, these people flying a spaceship made me want to be a pilot. I was never that guy, because even if I were a pilot, I'm probably not going to get to fly a spaceship.
Right.
So that leap doesn't happen for me. But I mean, there was like this Mr. Science moment right there that I was like, wow, I could see that if I weren't a jaded 40-something. I might say, wow, there may be something to this science thing. Instead, I'll just wait for people to discover planets and tell me about them.
Yeah. But yeah, that was very, very cool.
I was confused by one other thing. I think it was in the same scene, actually. Chekhov says the computers on the Enterprise contain the sum of all human knowledge. So while we were bemoaning the fact that there was no backup for Memory Alpha last week or a few weeks ago, apparently Memory Alpha is the backup.
Yeah,
and so if every ship in Starfleet gets destroyed, then thank goodness we have Memory Alpha. But we don't really need Memory Alpha, because the sum of all human knowledge is in the computer of the Enterprise, which is great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
I mean, I'm glad. Although now I'm wondering why we even bothered with Memory Alpha.
You could apparently just put it on a handful of those little plastic discs that they carry around with them. Those memory chips. Yeah.
The other question, of course, is if the sum of all human knowledge is in the computers of the Enterprise, should the Enterprise have shields?
Right. Yeah, because apparently it's just, if you're on Memory Alpha, just open door.
Information wants
policy.
to be free. Exactly.
It does.
Klingons are going to come knock on the side of the Enterprise one day. Hey, do you have a recipe for plummet soup? Thank goodness. I mean, there are a few people on board the Enterprise who do have that recipe, but if they're all gone, they can just go to the although that would be the sum of Vulcan knowledge.
Well, I was going to say, this is the sum of human knowledge. If you want Vulcan knowledge,
you make a good point. Except if you share the knowledge with the humans, then does it not become human knowledge, and thus do we not have all of the information on board the Enterprise?
Ooh, there you go.
I'm deep, man. You reach.
Right. You reach. Hey, I have a very simple question.
Yeah.
So they get to the planet, they get to not Eden, and you find dead Adam, dead Charles Napier, and then everybody else is hiding inside the shuttlecraft.
Yep.
Why did the crew go there and open the shuttlecraft and get them out of the shuttlecraft? They were safe in there.
Well, the Galileo had a little bit of a TARDIS thing going on, being bigger on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but the Galileo 2, which is what this one was, may not have. So they may not have been able to get as good a wide shot as they wanted.
Okay.
That's about the only thing I can think of, because otherwise you're right. In fact, when, I love Kirk, by the way. He's like, oh, wow, everything's acid, even the grass on the ground. Oh, my God, am I safe?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you'll be fine for a little while. Oh, okay, good. Well, then let's go get the half-naked people out and throw them on the grass and see what happens.
We should pitch whoever did that Spider-Man musical on turning the way to Eden into a rock opera Broadway extravaganza. It's hair meets... Well, I guess it's hair meets Star Trek.
So one thing that always strikes me as fascinating in Star Trek, we tend to think of it as a bit of a counterculture thing from time to time, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a counterculture episode of Star Trek?
How do you mean?
Well, a few ways. I mean, first of all, they're dirty hippies.
Right, yeah.
And they're treated as such by one of the characters. It really surprised me, but we'll come to that later, because I was totally blown away by how they were treated by one particular character. Anyway, it just seemed like a counterculture episode. It seemed like, a straighten up and fly right kind of episode. It seemed like you can achieve whatever you want to achieve as long as you, kind of like we were saying a few weeks ago about Mirror Romaine. You know what I mean? I mean, you can be whatever you want to be as long as you follow these rules and stay in line.
Right.
There was something sort of interesting to me about the fact that they were near Romulan space. Kirk is worried about the fact that the Romulans may attack. The Romulans never actually do attack. But here it seems to me that the damage is done, not by the established enemy, but just by like proximity in a way, or nearness of the enemy, or I can't quite put my finger on it. But there's something about this is going to get us. Because of where we are, this is going to get us. But it's not even being where they are that's going to get them. It's just the stepping outside the line, stepping outside the boundaries that seems to sort of like be the threat in a way.
Well, that's interesting because I thought the Romulan thing was really, to me, kind of a throwaway. I didn't even expect, when it was mentioned in the episode, I didn't even expect that there would be a Romulan threat at all. We were just going to see through the story of Severin and the hippies. That we wouldn't actually have to deal with Romulans. So,
and you see, it seemed to me that the threat of the Romulans was, look where getting on the line will get you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
We're now in horrible danger because we ended up, going where these people who are not wearing uniforms, these people who are not living, by the straight and narrow, or living the straight and narrow, route, or however you want to put that. The fact that we've been swayed off course by these, dirty hippies, has now put us in so much danger that we could easily be clobbered by our enemies. Because we're not living the button-down 9-to-5 Herbert way.
Right. No, that's really interesting because I hadn't tied the two together. Like I think I'm totally on the same page with you. We reach, if I may say, about the very.
Some say we reach too far.
Right. But we definitely reach about the idea that this is a condemnation of their counterculture. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting that you take it the step further, and the illustration of the Romulan threat is kind of like, well, look, let's put this in like Cold War terminology. Mm-hmm. If you're not a dyed-in-the-wool, red-blooded American, then you're something else. And if you're something else, it's just a step toward being a dirty communist.
Right.
You're just a step away from moving to Russia.
Right.
So yeah,
which I think is what I believe is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I get it now. I get where you're trying, because when they mentioned the Romulan thing, I sort of I was less interested in that. To me, it was just sort of like, we're going to figure out another way to ramp up the threat. Mm-hmm. And ramp up the reason that Kirk needs to get out of there. But I didn't really give it much thought beyond that. But I like the way you tied it back in to their counterculture. Because, I'm on the same page with you that as much credit as we give to Star Trek as being a progressive show, even counterculture from time to time, this is kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I am fascinated that every generation or two there's sort of a resurgence of utopian idealists, commune enthusiasts, maybe even hippies, if you want to call them that. There were a lot of those that kind of popped up in the late 19th century, and definitely the ones we know about from the 60s. And even now, I was just reading an article about kind of the commune culture in Southern California for two reasons, because you have a lot of economic disparity, and you also have very few laws that manage the numbers of non-related residents who can be in a single home. So all these people get together, and instead of being faced with huge rents and huge real estate prices, you get 20, 30 people together to try to live as a commune. The problem, though, is that you get too many people together and then they start acting human. And very few of these models end up surviving for very long. People will steal from each other or not fess up when they do something wrong or there's a problem. So the ideals quickly kind of fall apart, and people move on from those relatively quickly. But I'm also really fascinated with the idea then that in this episode, we spell out the problem, the downside with Star Trek's future. That, to me, to have that early in the episode, Spock and Kirk having this conversation and then reiterated by Severin about how we have sanitized everything. Mm-hmm. And there is a detachment from nature. Spock and Kirk kind of sympathize with the idea. They're like, oh, yeah, that's too bad, although look at all the upside.
Kirk doesn't sympathize with it. Spock does.
Spock sympathizes with it. Kirk, for a moment, he kind of gets it. He's like, well, yeah, everybody wants to have that, that connection back to nature and all. But I'm done with that. That's kind of, he sort of brushes it off.
I don't know.
It happens for a second, trust me, and then it goes away.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. I wish, this is one of the many times that I wish that we had an idea of what life was like in the Federation, but outside of Starfleet. Because I don't know where you hear Kirk having any sort of the sympathy at all. I mean, what he actually says is something to the effect of they don't need to act like children about it. Well, I'm trying to figure out, could these people have set themselves up someplace else and live the primitive, simple life that they wanted to? They would not have been able to go to a planet of primitives like they talked about. And Spock telling Severin that he would see if they can make that happen. If there actually are primitives there, no, that won't happen because that would violate the Prime Directive. But could they set themselves up someplace else? This side of paradise would seem to indicate not. Because before we knew the effect of the spores, Kirk had orders to get all of the settlers off of Omicron Ceti 3. With none of this pesky, do you want to leave Omicron Ceti 3? Business. Right. He's under orders from Starfleet when they get there and find people living there. But before they know about the spores, to get everybody off there. Yeah. So for Kirk to say, well, they don't have to act like kids about it. They don't have to act like babies about it. You don't go around stealing starships. Well, I mean, is there a process by which you can go to the Federation and say, hey, listen, I'd like to live on a planet without you. Is that possible? Can I go someplace where I can churn my own butter and make my own clothing and not deal with sort of the balance that you're bringing, offering, imposing? I mean, because we don't know which one it is, right?
I'd like to think that there is. I mean, we all kind of idealize the future that Star Trek presents. But like you said, we're only given a small piece of that. We're only given that vision of the future through the lens of the Federation and Starfleet. Right. So one would like to think that there is, we all know that Kirk loves to talk about freedom and individuality. But when it really comes down to it, and you have people expressing a bit of freedom and individuality that doesn't fit with Federation or Starfleet standards, then there's a problem. So that is kind of difficult to reconcile with this episode. I do agree with Kirk to the extent that, you can't just go around stealing ships. And you should be able to present your case in a rational way to try to get what you want. So he's got a point to that extent. But I'm like you. I want to know what are the methods that one could realistically go through to just live the way you want to live. If you want to go churn butter, go churn butter.
What form can I fill out for me and my 5 cronies to go live on a planet that doesn't involve any of this? Yeah. Or do you have to wait until holodecks come along 70 or 80 years later and you can just go live in one?
Right. But you still have to go through Federation paperwork or Starfleet paperwork to get in the holodeck.
That's true. Holodecks, they don't just grow on trees.
No, they don't. No. Not like poisonous fruit, anyway.
No. His name was Adam. It's fine. I was okay with it. Whatever.
Yeah. I do respect Spock's ability to show respect to Severin, because Kirk barges in and immediately antagonizes the group. He is Herbert for all intents. But Spock does something that I know I have a hard time doing, and probably a lot of people have a hard time doing, which is showing genuine interest and then finding a connection, even if you're not on the same page philosophically. I thought that was really cool. That even if Spock is not a member of this cult, he's not. He doesn't necessarily grok them entirely.
I think he does, though. I mean, I actually found it fascinating that the most logical person among them is the one who's, hey, live and let live. You guys want to be that way, be that way. Well, except for not you, Severin, because you will kill any primitives that you come across. And it turns out intentionally. And I love the fact that, like, the next time you see Spock talking to Kirk about him, he's like, oh, yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, right,
he's just insane. Yeah, but what he's trying to do is not insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I really did think that Spock actually did grok the fullness. Heck, he jammed with them, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Why were they broadcasting that all over the ship, by the way?
I have no idea.
Yeah, bad idea.
Yeah, that was a very bad idea.
It strikes me as a terrible idea. Music wasn't bad.
That
last line of that one song is terrible, but
right, right.
Ghastly, actually. Okay,
Exactly.
So here's the thing. Forgive me, because we've talked about Kirk and sort of his sort of derisive treatment, of the dirty, filthy hippies a couple of times.
Right.
Can we talk about Nurse Chapel?
Yeah, please.
Holy cow! Did she hate these people from the word go?
Right.
Complete disrespect for Severin when it came time for his examination. And this is before we knew that he was insane. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to treat the insane poorly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you might in a warped way be able to tell yourself, well, it doesn't matter how I treat him because he's crazy and I think I'm treating him bad anyway, so what do I care? But he's just a guy at that point. He's just a guy with no shoes who's a little bit of a hippie, and she's just like, won't bleh. I mean, she has nothing but disdain for him. And then when there is a fight in the hall to keep the rest of the Seekers of Eden out, she goes to fight. Nurse Chapel goes to fight. She stands alongside the red shirts and is pushing at the hippies, right?
Yeah.
And then she comes back in from that and says, I thought all of the animals were kept in cages.
Oh, I know.
Flipping hippies, man. And nobody says anything like, come on, Nurse Chapel, maybe, tone it down just a tiny bit. Let's treat our guests with respect, or let's treat our guests like guests.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just like, I hate them.
Yeah.
which was amazing to see from Chapel. This is one of the, and this may be the most blatant, and we've talked before about how they'll make Scotty stupid when they need him to be stupid, or they'll make Bones a lazy Southerner when they need him to be a lazy Southerner.
Yeah.
This may be the worst example ever of just making a character, the gumbification, the complete gumbification of a character. Let's just mold her into something completely different, because this is a woman who, what was, like the one with, I can't think of the name of anything. With sort of the barbarian queen and the ambassador who is trying to make her nicer, and Spock, Kirk falls in love with her.
Ilana Troyes.
Ilana Troyes, yes, thank you very much. She's totally respectful of the Troyans.
Right.
Or not the Troyans. She was going to, whatever. She's totally respectful of the barbarians at that point.
Right.
But dirty, stinking hippies are dirty, and they stink, and they're hippies.
Right.
I mean, she is just, okay.
Yeah.
She may be a child of a commune. This may actually be the deal, who just could not get away fast enough when she was 16 and a half.
Yeah, that was really weird. The animals line really kind of jumped out to me. I was, oh, wow. Whoa, really?
Wow.
Kept in cages.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Could I go see Dr. Mbenga instead? Maybe because he might.
It's possible that Severin wasn't even sick.
Right. Yeah. The other things that I thought were the most interesting to pick up on this, well, first of all, the very clear historical parallels. You had a lot of social upheaval in the late 60s. Like I mentioned, there were experiments in commune living. You had a drug culture. You had the counterculture movement, youth movement. All these things kind of coming together at a head, and which makes this episode very much a product of its times. We also have to mention that Dr. Timothy Leary, who, for those of you who may not know, ran psychological experiments with psychedelic drugs at Harvard. He was forced out, even though at that time the drugs that he was experimenting with, or using the drugs he was experimented with, were perfectly legal. But then he was very quickly considered dangerous. Richard Nixon called him the most dangerous man in America. And then he became kind of a sensation, growing this weird cult, for lack of a better word, of followers who were tuned into his ideas of mind expansion. So I think Severin is a great science fiction stand-in for the Timothy Leary type character. But the other thing that I really couldn't help but be drawn in by this episode was exploring how a cult operates, the in-group, out-group mentality, the deception and self-deception, particularly on Severin's part, the total loyalty and belief in their ideals superseding law. You know, here's the thing. Let me preface this, Ken, by saying that I agree with you that I think that Kirk expressed himself in some very poor ways here, and there has to be a line that we find where we can respect the individual desire to live the way that they want to live. Mm-hmm. The problem with the space hippies, at least as they are expressed here by Severin and his followers, is that they get to a point where they just completely eschew not just decent manners, but certainly the law as well. They have stolen a spaceship. They take over the new ship that they're on. There's the attitude that they have that what they're doing goes beyond the simple decency of respecting the other people around them, the people who are the out group around them. Mm-hmm. That's the way that a cult would operate. You know, to a cult, the ideals of the cult are more important than even following regularly, commonly held acceptance of law.
Yeah, so. I think my problem though is that they are treated as the same thing. Mm-hmm. So here are a bunch of peaceniks, right? Yeah. Here are a bunch of peaceniks who, I mean, they actually, when they sing in the song about, you know, would it not be better to call you friend than to try to push you out of my way? Mm-hmm. That's a very sort of peacenik idea. It's also not a bad idea.
No, not at all.
It's actually a fairly respectable idea. And the only time that we have heard that idea presented, it turns out they're members of a cult. I mean, and that kind of annoyed me.
Well, but here's the thing. I agree with you. I put the blame at Severin's feet, his dirty, unwashed, bare hippie feet, because people who are taken in by a cult of personality or whatever kind of cult you may find them in, they are not stupid, and they're certainly not dirty, but they may just be presented with wrong or incomplete information. I mean, to me, that's kind of one of the takeaways here, is that there is a harm in being blind to the reality of your situation. The fact that they would completely reject the idea of the medical diagnosis of, look, this guy is sick and he needs help.
Right.
You know,
I understand what you're saying, but let's go from 30,000 feet. Mm-hmm. The two times that we have seen communal living or hippie living, they were either all a bunch of druggies who had no idea what they were doing, a la This Side of Paradise,
right?
Or they were a cult, a la this episode. I mean, you have Captain of the Starship Enterprise, Kirk, professing peace every time they sail in. But as has been pointed out by some of his adversaries in the past, they sail in with weapons and shields and the ability to call in more ships with weapons and shields.
Right.
If you come across anybody who is literally, seriously, honestly just about peace, with the exception of, who was it? Not A Private Little War. What was the one where the Klingons ended up kind of having to work a little bit with the Federation?
Oh, we're not talking about the Organians. We're talking about...
We may be talking about the Organians, because they were so peace, but then the problem was they weren't even really peace at that point. They were just like, nuts to you guys. Right? Yeah. I mean, they actually ended up becoming sort of worse. They were sort of militaristically peace in a way that even the Federation is not. Sorry, I know I'm circling around a couple of times. My biggest problem is when you come across hippies, there's something wrong with them. When you come across people who really are just about, hey, you know, I'm your brother. Yeah. Well, you're either stoned or, you know, being led by a Manson, Jim Jones type character.
Yeah, I get it. I get where I reach you, man. I think we reach on that.
You just sound like Kirk now. You just sound like Kirk. Hey, man, we reach, brother.
I am with it.
Yes, exactly. It feels like we probably do. It's weird to me, though, that Star Trek kind of doesn't. At least the original series doesn't. Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, well, maybe the other story isn't the interesting story to tell, because maybe the other story where you have a band of hippies who call each other brother and just want to live off the land, but they don't steal spaceships and they don't kill people on planets where they arrive because they're carrying diseases. That's the less interesting story to tell. So it goes back to your point of saying, well, I want to know what life in this 23rd century Federation is like for the people who aren't part of the Federation or aren't living and by those set of rules.
Except if we're looking at Star Trek as a way toward the future, then here's what we found out. People who believe in peace and love above all other things, again, are either druggies or they're being led by a cult leader. And by the way, there is no Eden where they're going. There is no real destination for where they're going, because they think they're going to live someplace where it's going to be all peace and nice and they're going to eat the fruit of the trees. Hey, guess what? The fruit of the trees is poison and you can't even put your feet on the ground, because that whole thing is this is just a disastrous thing. And by the way, the communists are outside.
Well, this goes back to my thing about being blind to the reality of their situation. The problem in this episode is the cult mentality.
Back away from this episode. This is what I'm talking about. Star Trek has presented us twice with hippies. Hippies, which are an actual thing at the time that Star Trek is being presented, right? When Star Trek is on TV, there are hippies outside. When Star Trek is first on TV, there are hippies outside. And what we're being told by Star Trek both times that we encounter hippies in Star Trek, oh, no, stay away from the hippies.
Yeah. No, I'm with you that it would have been a much happier ending if they had dropped the hippies off at Omicron SETI 3 and said, look, we found Eden.
Touch that flower. It will not burn you.
No.
That's a good, see? Now,
but
there's my novel. There's the novel I want to read.
Right. But that goes back to the cult mentality of not accepting the reality of the situation. So if they could only have reached with Kirk, or they could have only reached, a computer with the sum of all human knowledge that says if you go to Omicron SETI 3, things are going to be great, then that's what they should have done.
Time for the messages, morals, and meanings part of the show. What do these dirty hippies have to tell us? And is it still relevant today?
Ken, I mentioned very early in the recording of this podcast that this is the much derided episode, The Way to Eden, a.k.a. the Space Hippies episode. But what I'm so glad that you and I got to do just now is have an engaged and hopefully engaging conversation about what this episode is really about. And so far, we have not mentioned Charles Napier's bare chest or thigh-high boots. We mentioned the bicycle wheel instrument, but we didn't mention the kind of other trappings of hippiedom that would date this episode. So now we get to kind of really put a nail on it and say, what does this episode actually hold up? Is it as bad as people think it is? And what do we learn from it? So, Ken, here we go. Does the episode, after all of this, actually hold up?
Oh, that's so tough. I think there are a lot of really great ideas in this episode. First of all, the music was not as bad as I remembered. I mean, the last line of that one song is just terrible. And it's always the one that's shown in clips to show how bad this episode is. So that one line of that one song is terrible. But, I mean, it's not as horrible, honestly, as I remembered it. And so maybe the episode holds up because it's not as bad as you remember. I'm not sure that's really praise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about hippies. It's about very much of that time hippies. And so it's going to be kind of hard for it to hold up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like you can watch a Charlie Chaplin movie now and say, oh, it's funny. But you're not going to say, oh, and this would play well to a mainstream audience today because it's so much like what they know. No, you kind of have to be okay with an old movie to appreciate an old movie. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to be okay with dirty, stinking hippies. Actually, kind of have to love them for this episode to hold up stylistically.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very much, it is stamped, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And so that's going to make it hard for a lot of people to watch. Anyway, that's my feeling. What about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. I mean, stylistically, no, it doesn't hold up. And this is the one episode that firmly dates Star Trek to the late 1960s.
Yeah.
You can only look at this with the context of trying to piece together what late 1960s America was like. And that has not been the case in many, many episodes of Star Trek. I also feel like, you said the music isn't as bad as one would think, but I also feel like whenever you put popular music in a show, then you're doomed. Or at least popular style music, what they were doing here. Because if it's not actually popular music from the time and popular music that has withstood the test of time, it will only sound weird to you.
Yeah.
That's it. And you see it in TV shows all the time. They're like, oh, this is the greatest band in the world, and they have a hot new single. But then you hear it, and it's like, no, that would not be a hot new single today.
Right.
But I feel like the ideas here do hold up, and they were worth talking about, and they were worth debating. I found that to be the most interesting thing about it overall. Mm-hmm. There were many interesting threads to go down, but maybe the idea could have been explored differently. Either going down this road of looking at the cult aspect of it, or looking at the individual freedom versus the kind of rigid group ideology of the Federation versus this very small kind of seemingly harmless group of hippies. Maybe in a few years, you never know, we'll get to revisit the idea of a charismatic semi-religious figure who will entice the Enterprise crew with the promise of a mythical new world. You never know. That might show up as a plot line somewhere down the road.
Yeah. It will be maligned then, too, if it does, by the way.
Yeah, it might. But no, I mean, the episode does not hold up. Just stylistic, all of that. But if you watch it with the idea of what we do on Mission Log, trying to pick apart the morals, meanings, messages, then I think you've got something.
Yeah. There's a lot here. There's a lot here to, I mean, and you will end up, you may well end up disagreeing with somebody that you oftentimes agree with.
Right.
For example, I don't think you and I are on the same page on this episode at all.
No, I think we're maybe in the same book, but we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
Well, tell me then. So, what are the messages that you picked up out of this?
Oh, counterculture is wrong. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that to me is this message. Now, there is a thinking person who is willing to say, you guys aren't completely wrong, and I hope you'll keep working at it. But the way you tried to go about it is wrong. And I don't disagree that the way they tried to go about it is wrong. Don't steal a starship. And certainly Severin is insane.
Yeah.
He does know on some level that if there are people on the planet that he is going to kill them. But he wants what he wants. Okay, that's bad. And that's a bad way to be. Mm-hmm. But it's only Spock who even goes that far. It's only the most intelligent among them who goes that far. Everybody else is like, well, freaks, hippies, whatever. Except for, except they are a ship of lemmings at the same time. Somebody's like, hey, you should come with us. And Sulu's like, hey, maybe I should. Everybody's sort of able to be swayed really easily or not swayed all the way, but they seem willowy a bit. It seems like the crew of the Enterprise, not unlike what happened on Omicron Ceti 3, now that I think about it. This is better? Okay, that's better. Tell you what, I'm going to throw off all this stuff and go that way. overriding message, though, really does seem to be that, living outside the straight and narrow, living outside the 9 to 5, living outside the button down, not being a Herbert is a bad thing. Yeah. Really, honestly, is the only message that I can pick up from this, unless you're willing to sort of be way above it, which Spock is both willing to be and is able to be. Everybody else is kind of like, glad that's over.
Well, I thought that was the interesting thing to explore here is that, like you said, the most intelligent guy on the show is the one who does reach out to them.
Right.
And Spock is a figure that we've seen time and time again sort of represents an ideal that at least intellectually humans should strive to be. Sometimes we are at our best when we take a step back and use logic rather than our gut emotional reaction. Spock's reaction to the hippies is better than Kirk's reaction, for sure. The interesting thing to me here is about drawing the line between individual freedom, individual desires, and the right to live their lives as they want to, and the line where then that becomes dangerous either to others or to themselves, and how do we intervene with that, or should we intervene with that? I think those are the interesting moments for me in this episode. There is a message here about the grass not being greener. Clearly, if it's acidic grass, then that'll be bad. There's something here about sort of being a realist, at least sometimes. There's a great exchange between Chekhov and Irina, where Chekhov says to Irina, be correct occasionally, but also from Irina's perspective, be incorrect occasionally.
Yeah,
I thought that was a nice meeting of the minds, and instead of trying to draw that line of demarcation, at least they're trying to reach, man. They're trying to reach.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong about that. I'm bummed. No, I mean, honestly, it bummed me out. It bummed me out that just the total. And don't misunderstand. I would much rather live in the Star Trek world than the Eden world.
Sure,
I would totally rather be that guy, but I'm okay with the people who live on the farm. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, the farm being a commune in Middle Tennessee, not just people who live on a farm. People who live on the farm. I don't even actually know if the farm is still going. I think it might be, but I'm not sure. Or like the communes that you were talking about in Southern California. I don't want to live there, but I'm fine with somebody else if they want to. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I would rather not be, made fun of for thinking that maybe we should treat people who think differently than us respectfully.
Yeah.
Because, that's the other thing. I know I keep coming back to the song, but, his whole thing of should I push you down when I want to get past you, or should I say, hey, brother, do you mind if I sneak past? That's really the most he's saying. He's not saying, so now we all have to go live on a commune. That doesn't count as singing either, by the way. Okay. He's not saying now we all have to be the same way. He's just saying, hey, how about if we're cool with each other? Would that be cool? Yeah. And that seems to sort of be... the overriding answer seems to be no, sadly, unless you're talking to the smartest guy on the ship. But from everybody else, from all the rest of the people on the ship, it's like, yeah, no. I like your music. That's groovy. Yeah, I like your clothes. That's groovy. But no, the way you live is actually not good.
Well, I also say they were dealing with some extreme circumstances.
Well, they were.
And if you don't have a madman like Dr. Severin, and you don't have the cult mentality, and you don't have the fact that there is an acidic, people-killing planet that you will arrive on, then given all of those, then I can get behind the hippie song, Let's Call Each Other Brother, and just be cool with each other. So that's all. I just, I don't want to be the wet blanket. I'm just saying that they have a detachment from reality. But Kirk's answer to that is probably also the wrong answer to that. Spock represents Spock is probably the hero of the show because he represents a way to bridge that gap. I think it's unfortunate that the hippies couldn't learn from the new information presented to them. You know, that's the tragedy here. It's like, by the way, this planet, let's just send a landing party down, or let's do a scan first. Let's make sure the planet doesn't try to kill you. And then if it does, seriously, we have this other planet. Spores, the whole thing, you will love it. And then I think we would find the happy ending that we would both prefer.
Yeah, except that doesn't even seem like it was ever an option for a moment. I mean,
no, I know.
Spock does say, I would be willing to talk to them about possibly letting you colonize this planet if we actually find this planet that most people believe doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
But Kirk's already told them, here's what's going to happen. I'm taking you back to Starbase, and then you're all going to be sent back to your original planet. Yeah. I mean, there's no level of let's see if we can work through this. Yeah. From the power structure. The power structure is like, wow, dirty hippies. You know where you should go? Back to wherever you came from.
Back to dirty hippie land.
No, not even dirty hippie land. They're trying to build dirty hippie land. No. You go back to, Ohio, Indiana, wherever you were before you got in that bus and came to the hate. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
HAIGHT, by the way, not
HHT.
The hate. That's a whole. That's that one with Edith Keener. Or Patterns of Force, I guess would be the other one too.
There you go.
There you
go. So here's the thing. I have come down saying that this episode is dated, that the music is dated, that costumes don't work. From a production point of view, it doesn't really work. But I liked it. I liked this episode. I mean, it's kind of... I would even say that I liked it more than Spock's Brain.
Well, really?
Yeah, I mean, Spock's Brain was an episode that, again, you go into it going like, okay, this episode is made fun of, it is derided, it is parodied, rightfully so. But we still found something interesting to talk about in there. And in this, I felt like more so than Spock's Brain, there was an idea at play, or at least several ideas at play, that got the gears going in my head. We got to talk about cults and communes and rights of the individual, and when is a structured society a bad thing? I mean, all of these are ideas that got explored in this, and maybe they got explored in a way that doesn't hold up anymore, but I'm not going to fault it for that.
That is so interesting. See, I like an episode of Star Trek that does make me think, but I don't know that I like this episode. I like the fact that it made me think, but sadly it made me sad. I mean, what I felt like was being said, what I felt like was being decided, ended up bumming me out. And yet there is a lot of stuff to love about this, including, and if you're still not sure who Charles Napier is or was, just do yourself a favor. Go check IMDb for one of the latest pictures you can find of him. Yeah. Which I think is 2011, I believe, is maybe when he passed away. Yeah, so you'll see that picture, and then you'll just be blown away. I mean, it's honestly hard not to like the episode just because of that. I mean, just because... I mean, 2 words I never thought I would say together, or 3 words, are shirtless Charles Napier. And I know you said we haven't mentioned it before, but I mean, he's young and groovy in this episode, which may not mean as much to you as it will when you say, oh, he was that guy from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, and dude can sing, right?
There is that too. And he gets a writing credit as well.
Yeah. But for all of those reasons, I liked it, but I get to look at this through the eyes of nostalgia. So there is that. And there is this idea that it is just sort of this goofy, weird experiment on Star Trek's part. But you look at where we've come in season 3, and there have been a lot of just sort of forgettable episodes, a lot of just sort of slow episodes. This is neither. It is neither slow nor forgettable. And there are ideas worth talking about here. So for all those reasons, this is not an episode that I dreaded watching 4 or 5 times in prep for our show at all.
That really sounds, man.
All right.
Sadly, I wish there had been something to talk about in this episode,
Oh, I know. Yeah. Exactly.
What about next week? Will there be something to talk about next week, John?
There may very well be, Ken. Next week we'll be talking about the Cloud Minders.
Some of the music for the mission log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to take a shower. I'm fine with the whole brother and sister business. However, I'm also fine with shoes. End transmission.